Hey everyone, welcome to the Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast Network Roundtable. I'm Ron Johnson from the Ron Johnson Show. That's Sam Ekstrom. That's Luke Inman. We are very thankful you guys joined us today, and it's a great show today. Why? It's Vikings Packers week. It's also New Year's Day. So for everybody that's going to make their resolutions, everybody's going to wake up the next day, you get to sleep in a little bit because the Vikings don't. Well, I don't. I got to do a pregame show with Mark Rosen early in the morning at 10 a.m., but you guys get to sleep in for a 3:25 kickoff of the Vikings versus the Packers. And you know what? No better person to talk to about the Vikings-Packers matchup on our roundtable than Peter Bukowski. When you guys heard the news this week, he made some comments about the Vikings being frauds. And we're an equal opportunist podcast network, so we got to bring Peter on to defend himself and just really explain, because a lot of times hot takes get given and then people only see a snippet of it. I watched a lot of it and it never got better. So we're going to let Peter try to explain himself out of this one. I wore my Avengers shirt just so that he understands how serious this is. He's not Thanos. We've already discussed that yesterday. He's not Thanos. He's more like Puss in Boots. Is like somehow joined into the Avengers saga and become like one of the weird, like he's Loki. We'll give him Loki. He's a trickery sorcery type of guy. So he's going to join us. We're also going to talk about the Gophers Bowl game, because there were some things that happened in that game that we have to discuss, that the NCAA has to deal with eventually. It's coming. I don't know when, but it's coming. But we're going to talk about the Gophers game. We're also going to jump into some early predictions of MVPs, maybe Coach of the Year. We'll see how much time we have on the pod today. But with no further ado, again, I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. And that's Luke Inman. Also, make sure you download the Locked On Sports app. It's on Amazon Fire and Roku. You can get all of our shows, all of our videos. You can leave comments on Twitter. Join in, share, comment, and just tell your friends about us. Well, fellas, as we jump into this Vikings-Packers matchup, I guess we'll call it, because it's not really a matchup in my opinion. I feel like this is going to be kind of one of those weird games where it doesn't have an identity. Why? Because it doesn't really matter as much to the Vikings as it does to the Packers. Even though the Vikings want to stay in front of the 49ers, I think the Vikings' biggest thing is getting to the playoffs healthy. If you look at Jalen Hurts getting hurt, that's a problem for the Eagles down the stretch. I feel like that's going to come back and get them if Jalen Hurts is not healthy. So I think the Vikings have that in mind as well. How healthy can we be? But jumping out there, Vikings, Packers, Sam, I'll start with you. What are some things you're looking for in this game?
So David Bakhtiari has been hurt. He is on his way back. He's been limited in practice Wednesday and Thursday, has a chance to play. Bakhtiari didn't play week one. Remember that. Mm-hmm. So we have yet to see Za'Darius Smith versus David Bakhtiari. All eyes are going to be on that matchup. That edge rusher who used to be in Green Bay, maybe some hard feelings there with the way that all went down. David Bakhtiari, the stalwart left tackle. That's going to be an unbelievable matchup to watch and could have a huge role in the game. Aaron Rodgers has not really been pressured that much this year, has one of the lower pressured rates of NFL QBs, but he has struggled more under pressure this year than usual. He's 23rd in passer rating when pressured. If they can get their front four at him, I think it really changes this football game, and they're going to have to probably go through Bakhtiari. So I've got all eyes on the edge, whether Za'Darius will have a big game again against his former team.
Luke, what you got?
Yeah, well, Ron, you brought up a great key on the football party about manufacturing Dalvin Cook's touches in an efficient way versus this Packers 3-4 front seven. Force them to keep that gap integrity sound. And by doing so, hopefully what you can find is an extra few creases in there, which we all know is sometimes all that guy needs to get him loose and he can impact the game. And as much as I think this has become a passing league and a pass-first team with the weapons this offense has, Dalvin Cook is still such an important piece to the bigger puzzle, and running the football late in December and January may be more vital and important now than it ever has been. And plus, let's not forget this too. The success he's had against the Packers in his career, take out the Sean Mannion game just for a second when Kirk had COVID. Dalvin's played in 7 games versus the Packers. He scored 9 touchdowns and almost 900 all-purpose yards in 7 games. And for whatever reason too, you get the chef in Lambeau, dude starts cooking. Again, take out that Sean Mannion game just for a second. He's put up 417 all-purpose yards in his last 2 games, 208 all-purpose yards on average twice. He's averaged 159 yards on the ground alone those 2 games. So Dalvin loves playing the Packers. He loves playing them in Green Bay and getting one of your most dynamic players involved in the offensive game plan. While the Packers defense, they're just going to be hyper-focused on stopping JJ. That's a huge key in this one.
Yeah, and I agree. For me, I think it's going to come down to this Jaire Alexander piece. Like, he keeps opening his mouth to the media, and granted, he has the bravado, he has the skill, he's a good player, but I feel like he's opening himself up to just eventually overdoing it. Because when you talk so much about, it was a fluke. Well, first it was a fluke. First it was you didn't get to cover Justin Jefferson. Now it's like fluky, like, he got some big plays here and there against us. But if I was on you got to make your mind up. Either he killed you guys and you wish you had covered him, or it was a fluke and you just weren't in the game plan. Either way, and you were on him. Like, it doesn't match up to how he's kind of wording it. But at the end of the day, I think he's just trying to psych himself up. You look at Deion Sanders and Andre Rison. You look at Deion Sanders and Jerry Rice. You look at all these matchups where big time corners versus big time receivers, Darrelle Revis versus Randy Moss. That was a matchup that I love. Why? Because there wasn't a lot of talking. Randy didn't say a lot. Revis didn't say a lot. It's just like, look, this is 2 giants that have to face each other. Let's just go play. And so JJ's not saying much. It's Jaire Alexander that keeps bringing this up with the Vikings and with Justin Jefferson. But here's where I go with this too. Not only are the Vikings really good, it's the Packers not allowing Kirk Cousins back on the field. That's the other matchup to watch. How often can the Vikings defense get the Packers off the field? And when you look at 3rd and 7 to 11, Green Bay is actually 33.3% converting, and the Vikings are 32.1. So these are 2 pretty even offenses. Like, the offenses on 3rd and 7 to 11 are pretty much the same. Like, this is one of those matchups, like I said earlier in the open, that I just feel like there's no true identity to this game. So that's what I'm watching. I'm watching Jaire Alexander versus Justin Jefferson. I got another quick one before we bring Peter Bukowski in for you guys. I'm going to go with you first, Luke. Luke, if the Vikings win this one, but Justin Jefferson doesn't have a big game, what do the people think of that? And Kirk Cousins still has a big game.
That's a great question, Ron, because all eyes right now, all the focus is on JJ and those records, both the reception and the yardage record right now. And again, we both talked about this week. You assume the Packers defense is going to be hyper-focused on stopping him. If Kirk has a big game, that means he's finding KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen and TJ Hawkinson and not forcing this thing. You can't let this record thing stick in the back of your mind when you're playing quarterback in the NFL and you're out on that field. You got to take what the defense give you. Don't force this thing with JJ. If it's there, sure, take it all day. But I expect the Packers defense to double that man, shadow him, safety over the top all game long, literally for 4 quarters. If Kirk has a big game, but JJ's quiet, that's okay. That's just them evolving and kind of adjusting to what the defense gives them. That's okay.
Sam, what do you think about that one?
Doesn't Thielen have one vintage game in him
always
yet this year? I mean, yep. I don't think he has a 100-yard game. I think Thielen is sitting on a big one. He's got a 200-yard game under his belt at Lambeau. He's done it before. I'm not saying he's doing 200, but Adam Thielen is due. His health is an issue, and that always concerns me. But I still think that if he gets the requisite number of targets, he can produce. And if Justin Jefferson is double covered, if he's taken, the attention of Alexander and Amos, whoever it might be, I think that Thielen could actually be the leading receiver in this game, and the Vikings will take that.
And where I'll go with it is if Justin Jefferson doesn't have a big game, we're going to hear a lot from Jaire Alexander that, he did his job. They silenced Justin Jefferson. But if Kirk Cousins has a big game, I think that adds to Kirk's narrative of this season of doing just what needs to be done in order to win these games. We've seen 3 games where Justin Jefferson didn't have a big one, and the Vikings came away with a loss in 2 of them. So I think the key is going to be what's worked the most. It is getting Justin Jefferson the ball. I think they're going to manufacture. But if somehow, some way, Justin has one of those off games again, but they still win and Kirk has a big game, just adds to that MVP narrative that maybe it's both of them and not just one. Well, we have a word from our sponsors. Sam.
Yes, we do. Right before we get to Peter Bukowski, let me tell you about BetOnline, betonline.net. It's your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. That's where we track all of the lines from all of the games. Gophers yesterday in the bowl game, they didn't cover. Ron needed them to cover, and they didn't. They won by 8 with a garbage time cover by Syracuse. Just cruel. Vikings against the Packers. The Packers are favored. They're favored by 3 at Lambeau Field, and they've even got the lines for Week 18. The Vikings are favored by 2 in Chicago in Week 18. We'll see how that moves after that Week 17 matchup. But you can get all of that at betonline.net. Also, all the bowl season lines, the college football playoff lines, MLB, when baseball comes back, UFC, everything's there. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. And now we get into Peter Bukowski.
Well, people, it's the moment you all been waiting for. It's the Peter Bukowski appearance on the Roundtable for Locked On Sports Minnesota. He has to defend himself, and we are an equal opportunist podcast, as I stated earlier. We have to let him, because it's one of those moments that his video got a lot of clicks. Sorry, Sam's video got a lot of clicks of us rebuttaling they are frauds. They don't have the stats to back it up. Well, you know what? Let's not even hold it up. Peter, thanks for joining us on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Roundtable. You made some comments about the Vikings being frauds and that the data doesn't stand up to the eye test or your test. Explain yourself.
Yeah, take that for data, right? I do have to tell you, I did, even though they lost, I had to rep Syracuse after last night with Minnesota.
Because they covered?
Because they covered. Great teams cover. Everyone knows this. So what I thought was really interesting, so I watched the show, I listened to it, I thought it was great, I had a lot of fun listening to it, and Luke and I, if you didn't listen to our crossover, we had a blast on Locked On Packers and Locked On Vikings, going back and forth on this. So I think there's some really interesting things with the win probability stuff that Arif mentioned in terms of the close game wins being 11-0, historic record in these close games. I want to hear from you guys, because I need someone to explain this to me, because I can't figure it out. I really can't. This is not a troll move. I am genuinely trying to get an answer to this. So in the first 3 quarters, the Vikings are 24th in EPA per play on offense. They're 27th in defensive EPA per play through the first 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, that was your thing, Ron. They're so good in the fourth quarter. They are 3rd in EPA per play on offense, 4th in EPA per play on defense. So why is it? What is the explanation for why they are a bottom 8 team through 3 quarters and then a top 5 team in the fourth quarter? Because that doesn't make sense to me. And Luke's explanation is essentially, and I don't want to make anyone, not Luke Inman, Luke Braun, I don't want to make anyone on this show defend Luke Braun, because that is a fool's errand, right? But this idea that it's all coaching, or that Kevin O'Connell stresses situational football, it's like, okay, well, the first 3 quarters have situational football in it too. So why isn't that stuff showing up through the first 3 quarters? And having watched Minnesota all year, I don't have a good answer. I watched them through 3 quarters, and I'm going, I just watched them play awesome in the fourth quarter. What is this team doing? I assume some Vikings fans have similar experiences watching this team. Like, what is happening? So can you tell me what is happening? Because I don't get it.
Yeah, those long periods during the game that seem to happen every week are very frustrating to Vikings fans, Peter. Here's my best guess at it. In the middle of the game, they are still hammering the run. They're still trying to establish Dalvin Cook, and their run success rate is very low this season. Dalvin has had some big explosive plays and some huge moments late in games, and that also speaks to the fourth quarter success, because he's had some huge runs in the fourth quarter.
And catches that Colts game, the chief among them, right?
The screen, the 64-yard screen, one of the biggest plays of the year. So when they've tried to run Dalvin Cook, it hasn't always gone well. It's set them behind the chains. It's led to more 3-and-outs and more failed possessions. In the fourth quarter, when they are compelled to pass the ball more, or if they're behind, to force the pass, it's often to Justin Jefferson, and it's often successful because Justin Jefferson is a cheat code. So while Kirk Cousins may make the cautious play in quarters 1, 2, and 3 and not throw to Justin Jefferson in a tight window, in the fourth quarter, he's doing that. And Justin Jefferson has the most yards of any player in the fourth quarter this season because he rewards Kirk Cousins for those risks. To me, that's the answer. Like, if you watch that Giants game back last week, 3rd down and 10, double covered, safety over the top with inside leverage.
Incredible
He throws
play
to Jefferson. He makes the play. 3rd and 9, 0 blitz. Kirk throws it to an area. Justin makes the catch. 3rd and 11, screen to Jefferson. He makes it with his legs. So just Jefferson making plays in the fourth quarter, honestly, has gone such a long way toward elevating this team late in games that I think that's actually a big explainer. And then on defense, timely turnovers. And that's not necessarily sustainable, but stripping the football on the final drive in the Bears game, stripping the football in Miami when they were about to go down and tie it, like stuff like that, has
Josh Allen at the goal line.
Josh Allen at the goal. Yep, that's a great example. So that's my best guess. I'd like to hear what Ron has to say.
So here's where I go with it, and this is more football. At the end of the day, you have a job to do. And when you look at jobs, sports is one of the only jobs you get to watch somebody do their entire job when it matters most from start to finish. And so if you think about most jobs in other places, you don't get to go watch, a car company every single minute in the key moments when a car comes off the line. You just see the finished product. So if you were to see the finished product of the Vikings at 12-3 and you were to look at the stats, you would just say, you know what, man, this is a really good car company. Like, I'm going to buy more stock in the Minnesota Vikings. But the fact that you get to watch it, it changes your mentality. And also the quarterback. If this were Tom Brady, and I've said this over and over again, say whatever you want, Kirk Cousins' past is what continues it's looming over him. It's like a dark cloud that follows him. If this were Tom Brady, they were 12-3. If this was the 12-3 Packers and they were winning the same way, everybody would be calling Aaron Rodgers some kind of ayahuasca god, and that he saw the world coming before it came. And so when you think about that, you think about what this is. And so here I go with this. First quarter, the Vikings have 79 first downs. That's 5th in the NFL. They have 27.6% of first down or touchdowns. That's 5th. When you look at the number of plays, all their metrics, and I'll put the teams up here, all their metrics of teams they're leveled out with. You got let me go back to the touchdowns. You got you got Philly, you got Kansas City, you got Buffalo, Dallas, San Francisco, Miami, LA Chargers. Like, think about that.
Those are good teams.
Think about that. You go back, you got the percentages. You got Kansas City, Buffalo, Philly, Cincinnati, San Francisco. Green Bay's up in there. And this is now I'm talking about second or third quarter. I've switched it. Second or third quarter for the Vikings, they're middle of the road, 23.7. They're in the bottom half. And here's where I go with this. They do such a great job on first down. It's like Peter Bukowski when he was in school. He would have that great first semester, and then he would jack it off the rest of the year and somehow finish with a 3.1. Like, that's what the Vikings are doing. They start off so fast that when they make mistakes, like that's, and I mean, think about it. Every teacher taught you that. Do well early so that when you start to screw up when it gets warm, hey, you have a cushion to make mistakes. And they have that cushion to make mistakes. Now, do they want to make them that close where it's down to the wire and they need the ACT to get into college? No, but that's where they're at. They're literally a star player that had a 4.0 to start the year, got really good, fell apart, graduated with a 2.8, and needed an 18 or 19 on ACT just to get into college. Like, that's where the Vikings are. And so who cares how the games finish? Because it's all about the wins. If they were to lose one score games, they're 11-0. If they were to be 0-11, we'd be talking about how bad of a team this is, how bad luck they have. Oh my God, they just can't finish games.
They couldn't win close games last year.
2021. Yeah.
So if we act like mental health is not a big deal, if we act like awareness of yourself is not a big deal, if we act like believing in yourself is not a big deal, we're kidding ourselves. Kevin O'Connell has found a way to unlock them to believe in themselves, believe in big moments, believe that at no point are we ever out of these games. You see teams, look at the Colts. The Colts were up 33 points, and the minute the Vikings scored 3 times, the Colts gave up. Like, the Colts stopped playing. They were just like, oh my God, how did we give up 3 touchdowns? Oh, we gave up a 4th touchdown. What? Like, you could see the crowd for the Vikings was still cheering as if the game was a 1-point game and they were down by 3 touchdowns at that point. They scored 2 touchdowns, and the coach, you could see the whole sideline just like looking around like, what the heck are we doing, fellas? And so that's what the difference is in the Vikings team. Let me just see if I'm summarizing your point so I understand it. So basically the analogy that I'm going to use is they're the gifted student who knows they're gifted. So they can go out and in the first quarter, they're going to play well because they're just good. They're just a super talented team, and they are.
then they just kind of get bored in the middle of the game, like whatever. Like we know we can do this. And then when the stakes are the highest and they need it, they have the star players. This is actually where I think Luke Braun's argument is the most strong, because Justin Jefferson and Sam made this point. Justin Jefferson, in have-to-have-it situations, you have that guy. Defensively, you have Za'Darius Smith and Danielle Hunter and guys on defense who can make those clutch plays, and that's enough to win you games. I think all of those arguments are compelling. I think when I'm looking at how good a team is, though, overall, why is that not true for a team like Kansas City, who has been there and done that every year? They're going to the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship game. They get bored in the middle of these games and still win by 2 touchdowns. So I guess that's where is that disconnect? Why don't they have the profile in the aggregate of some of those other teams? Why don't they win more by some of these bigger games? And I understand some of the backdoor covers and some of that stuff, but theoretically, the Bills could do that too. Theoretically, the Bengals could do that too. The Eagles could do that too. The 49ers could do that too. The Cowboys could do that too. And they don't. So that's where I think the difference is. So I actually think all of your arguments are compelling in terms of explaining this team. I'm just saying I think there is a gap between this team and those other teams, and that's the difference. So in terms of, like, when I say they're frauds, I don't mean I think they're 5-win team. Like, I just don't think they're in the same class as the 49ers or the Eagles or the Cowboys, and it's because those teams play more consistently than the Vikings do, even if there might be explanations in some ways for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but if you're looking for consistent play, so here's where I go with this. You're looking for consistent play. You're saying there's no data.
By the way, this is ayahuasca.
Here's the data. Here's the data for you. When you look at defenses, Super Bowl 31, which your Packers were in, up to Super Bowl 50. Defenses, teams that have the number one defense and actually win the Super Bowl, there's been 5. Teams with the number one defense and lose the Super Bowl with the 1 or 2 defense, there's been 5. Like, so it's not really about like you have to have a certain formula to win and to be considered a real team. Like, if you were to go back and say the Denver Broncos with Peyton Manning won Super Bowl 50, they beat the Carolina Panthers, were they a real team? In your mind, yes, because Peyton Manning was the quarterback. He had the 25th ranked offense.
Yeah, he was terrible.
They were not good. They had the 25th ranked out, but everybody was like, oh, that's a great team. When you go down and you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, number one defense in the NFL, won Super Bowl 43. Their offense was 21st. The New York Giants had an 18th ranked offense and a 13th ranked defense. They weren't great. They won Super Bowl 42. Like it's one of those things where the formula doesn't always have to match the numbers and it has to be a special way they win it. No. David Tyree was on the show. Helmet catch. That was like luck, but it also was skill. These moments can't happen in games without the data matching. So to say there's no data, that's where you can't call a 12-3 team a fraud. It doesn't make sense, because if they're frauds, then the Packers are absolute garbage trash, like Ninja Turtle slime. Like, I mean, if you put them as a fraud,
7-8. That's the difference.
If you put them as frauds, right? But the Packers are 7-8, and they're like
team.
No, they're not though. The Packers are playing pretty well. It's just the Packers are running into buzzsaws at times and can't find their way out of it, where the Vikings can. Now, the buzzsaw teams like the Eagles, the Cowboys, those 2 games, I chalk that up to like the Eagles was just miscommunication of Kirk and JJ. You look at those interceptions, Kirk was throwing a run route, JJ was running a different route. He ran a fade, Kirk threw a fade stop. He runs an out, Kirk throws a corner. Like, those are those are miscommunications. But to say there's no stats in the front, like, you can't use the word fraud just because you think they should be winning by 2 touchdowns. You play to win the game. That's it. You don't play to blow teams out. At the end of the day, when I go home, if I won, I won. That's it. You can't tell me I didn't beat you by a lot. I don't care. I beat you. Boxers, you can't tell a boxer he's a fraud because he wins 2-3 or he wins 1-2. Like, hey, I beat your ass more than you beat mine. I'm the winner. Period. And that's why, like, the word fraud to me, there's one thing if a team sucked and they didn't have the metrics or the stats. No, this is a team that defensively, their defense isn't playing great at all times, but they're doing just enough. So to say they're frauds because DVOA and all this other stuff, like, as a football player, honestly, I don't care about that stuff. Like, you can't tell me what a play should get. It does that. Like, that's what, I hate to use the word nerds, but that's what like PFF and all these people came up with stuff just to put on TV because they can't really explain football. But all that stuff like, oh, our yards he got, that were expected versus unexpected. Like, it's football. You can't tell me you thought Deion Sanders was going to do half the crap he did, or Dante Hall with the Chiefs, or Cordell Patterson. Like, nothing is expected. It's all unexpected. It's football. Like, and that's where
we do see these other teams historically that they like in every other sport, it is pretty well accepted that something like point differential, for example, is a really good indicator of a team's quality. You look at runs scored in baseball. All the top teams in runs scored last year were playoff teams. I think the Astros were third in score differential.
You can't use the Astros; they cheat.
But so like this was the
everybody would have that if they had a buzzer and a garbage can.
The Bulls were the third best team winning close games last year. They won close games a ton, and everyone knew they were getting dog walked by the Bucks in the first round. The Bucks had a point differential on average of 10 plus. So why is number one, why is football magically different? My answer would be it's not, because if you look at all of these other really good teams, they win these games by a touchdown or more on average, and they have point differentials, approaching 200, some of these really good teams. So what makes this Vikings team, why don't they look like every other great team that the NFL has seen over the last 25 years? Like they are a historical anomaly. And so I get what you're saying, Ron. Like, you play to win the game. They earn those 12 wins. They get them. They count. But I think when we're talking about the quality of the team, which helps us predict forward what they're going to do, you look and you say, okay, well, they don't have the same sort of profile as most of the good teams that we've seen over the last 25 years. Can they win the Super Bowl? Yeah, they can, because they're going to go to the playoffs. And once you go to the playoffs, weird stuff happens. The Giants beat the undefeated Patriots. Like, weird stuff happens. But I don't think they're in that same class. And I don't think it's that close.
And here's what I give you. So
that's, for me, that's why I'm saying that's the fraudulent part. Like, in terms of NFC contenders, they're not, because I don't think they're even close to the Eagles or the Cowboys or the 49ers or the Bills or the Chiefs. Like, I think they would get boat raced by those teams.
Super Bowl 41, the Colts had the number one offense. They had the 25th ranked defense, which is basically somewhere where the Vikings are going to end up. You look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they had the 20th ranked offense, the first ranked defense. The Baltimore Ravens, 22 ranked offense.
But what was their point differential?
Second,
check out the point differential. Defense.
It doesn't matter. They won.
Why doesn't it matter if every other team that were
because you win? If you win the Super, if they go the whole season and win the Super Bowl by 1 point at the end of the game,
but those teams
and they have a negative point differential.
But those teams,
do you think anybody really cares? No, nobody cares about point differential because they're winning. They're 12-3.
But Ron,
what's the Packers point differential? What's the Packers point differential?
Negative, because they're a bad team.
Right. Like, so they have a negative point differential, and they're 7-8.
You go to the Super Bowl and you win, no one cares about point differential. But I'm saying, if you go back and look at all those teams that won, those teams had a really good offense and a bad defense. Yeah, but they beat teams. Like,
yeah, but I guarantee, like, if you have a 25th ranked defense and you have a first ranked offense, that just means you're outscoring the other team. That's it. It doesn't matter the differential.
Those teams outscored those teams by a lot.
They outscored. I don't know about a lot. It wasn't a lot. I can go back and look at, because I know the Colts one. That one was close, but they outscored them. That's it. The 25th ranked defense and the number one ranked offense, they just outscored the other team. So at the end of the day, it's about changing the narrative. And here's another narrative for you. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tony Dungy could never get over the hump. Never could get over the hump. John Gruden comes in with Tony Dungy's team and removes Keyshawn Johnson. That's it. That's all John Gruden did. He removed Keyshawn Johnson. So I don't know if the give me the damn ball was negative. Keyshawn's my dog too, but I don't know if it was negative or what was going on. He removed Keyshawn Johnson halfway through the season. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers win the Super Bowl. Did anything change? No, because John Gruden got fired because he couldn't replicate it. It was Tony's team, Tony's guys, Tony's culture, but they needed a different voice. You fast forward that. You look at Tony Dungy with the Colts. The Colts were terrible. Tony Dungy comes in, flips it. All of a sudden, now he has a quarterback, and he's like, look, you take over the offense. I'll stick with my defense, and let's see what happens. Sometimes there's a coach that just gets it and gets it done. And I think we're forgetting the human element in sports. Like, all these numbers and everything and out there and the number sphere, the Twitter sphere. Hey, they're winning. So again, to call a grown man,
project winning forward,
to call a grown man a fraud, you just can't do it because it's not fraud. If they win those games, you can't say it's fraudulent. You can just say they didn't win the way I thought they should win, and then move on. It's not fraudulent. It's winning because they're 12-3. Like, I guarantee the Packers would give their left testicle to be 12-3
maybe
and
both.
have that point differential.
Maybe both.
Like,
but
that's the difference.
Ron,
is like,
to your
we can
point,
say
that
that
Indianapolis Colts
frauds.
team that you referenced, they had a plus 188 point differential, and the Bucs team that you referenced had a plus 150.
But do you know why they had a 188?
Because they were beating teams by a lot.
Did they beat every team by a lot, though?
They beat most of those teams by a lot. A plus 188 point differential means you're beating teams by 12 points a game.
But this is what I tell you, right? 12 points a game. You're talking about 12 points a game with a
versus
team,
half a point a game. That's what the Vikings are averaging.
With a defense giving up just as much. I don't care how many points.
If I'm winning by 10, I'm not giving up.
So how is your defense ranked 25th? In is it good? If your defense ranked 25th, is it good?
It is. If I'm scoring 35, if I'm giving up 25 and I'm scoring 35, that's good.
You're
That's good,
25th.
right?
You're telling me a 25th ranked defense is good.
If I'm giving up, no, I'm telling you for a team.
So okay, no. Stop there. Is a 25th ranked defense good? Yes or no?
No. But
Right.
the number one ranked offense is.
So if the
and your
25th ranked defense isn't good and the first ranked defense and offense can carry them, it's a team one.
Hey, punters are people too. What about special teams, guys? Come on. I get both sides of the coin. I'm sure everybody listening at home does too. Ron is looking at it here in the present. Right now, they're 12-3. They're a good team. Peter, like a lot of our jobs, it's to try to predict what they're going to do in the future. I understand there's a lot of holes we can poke at it. I guess
everybody's saying that, though. Everybody's trying to use that narrative.
sure.
But I guarantee if it
For
was
sure.
not, if this same point differential was Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, they wouldn't say they're frauds. It's just because
I
it's
get
Kirk
it.
Cousins.
I get it.
That's the nexus.
I don't know.
In this
Did we forget
whole
2019 when Vikings fans called the Packers the most fraudulent 13-3 team ever? Like, that was a thing. You guys were
Yeah,
there
Vikings
for that.
fans.
You guys were there for
Vikings
that.
fans call the Packers a fraud every year. Like, I'm talking about media. Did the media call the
Yes.
Packers frauds?
Yes.
No. You
Yes, they
cannot
did.
find any from the 2019 Packers. You can't find a media,
Yes,
like a serious media member
Ron,
that
I'll
did.
send you a media packet.
Send me a packet of where they
Wow.
said Aaron Rodgers. They said Aaron Rodgers is not good. The team, Devontae Adams is not really happening. Blah,
All
blah,
of the Aaron
like,
Rodgers are not good clips.
it
I
was
can definitely
not.
find
It
you
was
those.
nothing like what they're treating Kirk Cousins. I can promise you.
Okay, let me ask you guys this to both your points, because a lot of stats, just real quick, a lot of stats have been thrown out this week. But is there, or I guess, what is the stats that highlight and showcases the importance and value of play in crunch time, in fourth quarter? Like, is there something that weighs the importance of fourth quarter play and how it translates into success or wins? Because I know it's still important to play good football for quarters 1, 2, and 3, but I think most would agree playing your best football at the end of games should also be highlighted or emphasized or valued more, in turn, rewarded to at least a degree when breaking down some of these stats and matchups. To Ron's point, how many times did we watch Brady do nothing for 3 quarters, only to go off in the fourth quarter and win all those games? Dude made a Hall of Fame career out of it. We know that. I'm not comparing Cousins to Brady, but I do think there should be some sort of measuring stick that weighs and takes into account teams playing their best football when it matters most, because ever since KOC was brought in, he did put an emphasis on this team to be in the best position to succeed and be prepared when it was down in crunch time. So I don't think it's a coincidence that they're winning close games. They're finding ways to win. And for that, I just don't think it's as black and white to just say they're getting lucky. But
I don't either, by the way. I don't think they're just getting lucky.
okay, fair enough. Is there a stat, though, that kind of shows, even just to a degree, how the Vikings and Packers both stack up when it comes to fourth quarter play? Let's say this thing's tied in the fourth quarter. Is there a stat or metric that kind of shows us how both of them have looked in the fourth quarter down in crunch time?
Well, yeah, EPA, you can separate any of these stats by quarter.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, the Vikings are a great fourth quarter team by EPA per play. I mean, I think Arif mentioned yesterday that he thinks that has outstripped the Football Insider's DVOA metric, which adjusts for defense.
Mm-hmm.
I like them both. I think they're both useful. But look, to Ron's point, you have to watch, and I do think there is something intangible. Matt LaFleur said it this week. Momentum is real. He thinks. The analytics people think otherwise. I am not one of those people. I think momentum is real. Even if we can't measure it, I think it is real, and confidence is real. And so if you're winning these close games, I think there is a part of you that says, I have belief we can do it in the fourth quarter. Interestingly, that 2019 Packers team that a lot of people called frauds beat a Seahawks team by 1 score in the playoffs that had been historically good in 1-score games. That same 2019 Seahawks team. And I remember Ben Baldwin writing about it, that Pete Carroll in the Russell Wilson era was 500 in close games.
Wow.
But that season, because this is just sort of like how this works. Over time, these things regress and find their level because close games, the NFL is really close. Like Ron knows this. The talent disparity is really, really close game to game. It's 3 or 4 plays. Like you guys know this. And so it's really hard to win any game. So over time, these close games, it's gonna balance out. But like I think Luke Braun on my show made a great point that it's kind of too late this season because the wins are banked and they're going to the playoffs, and that means they have a chance to go win as many games as they need to. It's just funny that in that 2019 season, the Packers won a bunch of close games, the Seahawks won a bunch of close games, and then in the playoffs, one of them had to lose, and it just happened to be in a close game. This is just what happens because all these teams are so close that it's just not a sustainable way to win. And that's why I say it's not a good indicator of team quality.
Yeah. Winning 4 close games in the playoffs against those quality of teams is going to be tough. And so if you use point differential as a harbinger,
you'll take the wins.
It doesn't look great for the Vikings, and you'll always take the wins, of course. I think the Vikings' path, and I said this earlier in the week, is that the majority of Super Bowl teams are fueled by a top quarter offense. Like they're among the 25% best offensive teams in the league. And the Vikings, if you look at certain, I mean, you can obviously go play-by-play data, and it might not be as kind, but overall points scored, they're 7th. Passing offense, they're 6th. Like, this is an explosive passing offense, I think, that has the potential to carry them if the defense is not terrible. Like, part of your argument, Peter, is that they're bad on offense and they're bad on defense. And that is a problem because the defense has let them down sometimes.
For 3 quarters.
If the defense is not terrible, then I think they have the high-end passing offense to potentially make a playoff run. And also, scheme. First-year scheme, I think, has also been a setback for them in those middle quarters as Kevin O'Connell tries to figure out his play sequencing as well. Kirk Cousins getting comfortable, throwing more interceptions than he has in the past. I do think that every single week they learn a little bit more about this scheme, and I think you're seeing signs that, especially on offense, they're getting more and more comfortable in it, and that could be sort of an intangible that's not accounted for in the stats that we see now.
Here's where I go with this, though, too. So before we get out of here, and the only reason I know the coach is because of Tony Dungy, and so I'm sticking with that. I don't have time to research every team. But this is where I was waiting on. I was waiting for Peter to tell me a 25-ranked defense is good. So first of all, that means the Vikings defense is good. So I don't ever want to hear you say that again about the Vikings defense being bad because they're getting it done. Hold up. You said they're frauds, right? The Colts won 8 one-score games. 8. 26-21. 21-14, 31-28, 14-13. They had a bunch of close games as well. They had the number 1 ranked offense, but their defense could not just slow people down. Now, this is the reason why they had those 188 points, because you just have to look at a couple games. They put 43 up on the Houston Texans. They put 45 on the Philadelphia Eagles. They put 34 on the Cincinnati Bengals. That's your points right there. It only takes
where are
3
those
games
for Minnesota.
It only
They've
takes
only been
3
on
games.
the other end of those games.
Right,
They've only
those
been
teams,
getting their butts kicked in
the
those
Houston
games.
Texans were ass. The Vikings haven't played a team that was ass like that. Like, those teams were trash. Like, they played the Houston Texans.
The Bears. The Bears are bad.
The Bears are not bad. They have the number 1 ranked rushing offense in the NFL.
They played the Bears before they figured it out, though.
They have the number 1. No, they still ran the ball. They have the number 1 ranked.
Well, but they
NFL.
ran the ball because the Vikings defense is bad.
They have the number. They beat the Bears though. They beat them, but they had the number 1 ranked.
They had to come back to.
They had the
Bears.
number 1
Packers
ranked.
Played the Bears
team.
twice and beat them handily twice.
And they're 7-8.
But I'm just saying, good teams.
Sometimes some teams don't show up.
Beat the crap out of bad teams.
And some bad teams. No, some bad teams show up. Some bad.
Colts are bad.
The Colts got beat by the Jaguars 17-44.
The Colts are bad. This Colts team is bad.
Oh, you're talking about this Colts? I'm talking about that Colts team. That Colts team lost to the Jaguars. They lost to the Jaguars 17-44. It happens. It happens.
I understand.
Good teams get beat by a lot. Bad teams show up and play well. Bad teams show up and play well.
Why haven't the Vikings done it? Because it's not like they played all good teams.
They beat the Packers. What are you talking about? By more than 1 score.
Okay, that's the only game this season, and it was.
They got 2 more left. They got the Packers again, so they'll beat their ass again by a lot, and then they got the Bears left, and they're probably going to beat the Bears by a lot. That's those 3 games we're looking for.
Why didn't they
haven't come up yet?
Why didn't they beat the Colts by 2 touchdowns?
They scored 39 points and a half. You're telling me that's not
after
good?
Going down 33-0.
But you're telling me is that not good? They put up 450 yards and a half. Is that not good?
Yesterday, you can't have one without the other. You can't take the good.
They put up 450 yards. Right. I'm admitting. Yeah, they had some slow starts, and they put up 450 yards.
They should have beat that team by 2 touchdowns.
So it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like Peter's going to offer a full retraction, and it's going to be good.
Because you can't talk about point differential and then say, where are those 3 games? It doesn't matter where those 3. I'm just saying the Colts didn't boat race everybody. They had a bunch of one-score games too, and they won a Super Bowl.
They did blow some people.
They blew out 3 people, and it wasn't a blowout.
That's 2 more than the Vikings did.
Okay, and the Vikings got 2 more games left. So if they beat the Packers by more than one score and the Bears by one score,
you're 100% right. If the
Vikings
don't go in the Super Bowl, if they don't, you know what? It doesn't matter because they're 12-3. Okay. Like nobody expected them to be this good. Everybody was picking them to be a middle of the road team, and now everybody's so surprised they just want to talk about the Vikings because they know talking about the Packers doesn't help. You can talk about the Packers all day, and you're never going to get clicks. You talk about the Vikings, people are going to want to listen to you. That's why ESPN does it. That's why CBS does it. That's why Fox does it. That's why CCO. Every network knows I need to talk about Kirk Cousins right now because they're hot. If I talk about Aaron Rodgers, it's not going to do anything for me. I need to talk about Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. Think Kirk Cousins get more clicks than Aaron Rodgers? Are you serious right now?
So you're telling me right now if ESPN right now did a story about Aaron Rodgers, you're telling me that they're going to get more views about an Aaron Rodgers story than they will a Kirk Cousins story.
Ron, you cannot be serious. You absolutely cannot be serious.
What has Aaron Rodgers done this season
this is madness.
What has Aaron Rodgers done this season that was pivotal? What has Aaron Rodgers done this season that's pivotal?
And they still talk about him every week. That's the thing. Even
when
the team isn't relevant.
I got ESPN on all the time. I rarely hear Aaron Rodgers. I hear Devontae Adams and the Raiders. I hear possible trades. Nobody's talking about Aaron Rodgers. They're talking about Kirk Cousins.
I absolutely cannot
believe that McAfee. That's it, because McAfee has him on the show contractually every week.
Gets more clicks than Aaron Rodgers.
When Kirk Cousins takes his shirt off after a win, or when another person says Kirk Cousins is a fraud,
makes more waves doing drugs in the offseason than Kirk Cousins does doing anything on the football field this season.
If Kirk Cousins did drugs, he would
exactly. If Kirk Cousins did drugs,
Kirk Cousins does ayahuasca and goes on a podcast and talks about it, it will be great, and I hope he does it.
Wait. So you just talked about a player doing illegal drugs, and you think that's not going to get clicks? Come on now, Peter. Come on now. You're talking about illegal drugs now.
Not illegal in Peru.
You're talking about illegal drugs now. Come on now.
True.
Trafficking is not illegal in a lot of places too, and you still can get arrested in the U.S. Come on,
It should be.
How about this?
Come on now. I'm not talking about illegal. I'm talking about playing the game of football. If you were to just pull up and talk about Aaron Rodgers right now and the Packers not being that good, nobody cares. But when you talk about Kirk Cousins and what he's doing this season, everybody's talking about it because everybody's, he's good. He's not good. He's the most controversial, most doubted player.
If I did a video and said
in the NFL
is a fraud, it would get way more clicks than me.
Yeah, because he's not a fraud. You know Aaron Rodgers is good. But you say Kirk Cousins is a fraud. You say Kirk Cousins is a fraud, and everybody's going to look at it because everybody knows, everybody thinks that.
I can't believe this became Kirk Cousins as a victim. I can't.
He is. He's a victim of success. If he wasn't successful, nobody'd be talking about him.
Welcome to Lockdown Minnesota, Peter.
Hey, just saying.
I think we need a wager of some kind.
Yeah, we do. I'm just taking the 3.5. What's it at?
No, I'm getting there.
Just saying.
Because
every point about a fraud was met, and it still has no. You all the data's out there, and the only thing you want to go off of is point differential. That's the only data you have. That's one thing. Point differential. That's it.
It's not. But
that's one thing. You got one thing to stand on. Point differential. They're 12-3. Other than that, it's point differential. Oh, they're not winning the games, but they're winning in the second half. Oh, they're not doing this in the second quarter, but they're doing it in the fourth quarter. They won the game. That's it. That's all you have to stand on. Point differential.
No, it's not, but that's okay.
What else? What else do you have then? Other than point differential, what else do you have?
Ron, I just gave you all of the quarter data in EPA per play. If you look at any of the EPA data.
Okay, so explain EPA. What is EPA?
Estimated points added.
Estimated, which means what?
In a situation, what is the value of the play historically?
Right. And so who came up with that?
It's based on historical data.
So estimated points added, which means what? We're thinking how many points they could get.
No. So what is a 4-yard gain on 1st and 10 worth? value-wise. There is a mathematical answer to that. And so if on 1st and 10 you get 4 yards, that has a value. And then if on 3rd and 4 you get 6 yards, that has a value because it turns into a first down. So there's value there. But if you want to do more than just EPA per play, the Vikings offense 17th in EPA per play, 19th in DVOA, 14th in success rate, 18th in yards per play, 17th in yards per drive, and 13th in yards per drive.
What are they in the NFC North? What are they in the NFC North?
Mediocre.
What are they in the NFC North?
Productivity.
What are they in the NFC North?
But so Ron, you just said I didn't have any.
So you're talking about estimated. You're talking about estimated. I'm talking about actual
standings.
Right. I'm talking about actual though. Let's go actual. 66 plays, they're first. 43.9% in first and second downs. They're top 5. 29 first downs. They're second. 8 touchdowns. They're first. 49 passes. These are actuals. I'm not talking about estimated. You're talking about they get 4 plays on first down. Look, here, I'm gonna give you a stat. You're saying hold up. EPA. If Pat Mahomes were to go on first down every play and get nothing, and then on second down get 10 yards, it's a first down. So does that EPA matter about his first downs? Hell no, because he's getting first downs. Like that's why stats he gets sometimes credit
for the first down.
But not the EPA on first down.
Yes, he does.
When you look at the stats, and
he
so
gets credit for the first down.
So this is my point about EPA. Then how does that matter when in the fourth quarter they're getting first downs on third down every time? So how does that not
EPA in the fourth quarter?
How does that not right? But I'm talking about the whole game, the whole season. You're talking EPA and those. At the end of the day, they're winning, they're getting first downs, and they're outscoring the other team. Well then,
so Ron,
hold on. I'm going to tell you this. But I'm going to tell you this. So that EPA,
it only matters
the estimated play added, points added, all that stuff. It doesn't really matter if you're doing your job and winning the games. That's what I'm saying. You can't say they're frauds because they don't meet some mathematical numbers that somebody created. Like that's why QBR versus passer rating is always going to be a debate. Because ESPN added their own stuff in the QBR just to help themselves out for something to talk about. And when he's pressured, when he's this, when he's
just as made up.
But what are the punters' stats, you guys? You're missing it. It comes down to punters, guys.
But when we're talking about that, so so passer rating and QBR just added more stuff to it to bring down some of these other numbers. When he's pressured, when he's not under pressure, when he's throwing this, when the guy's wide open, and blah blah. I get all that. EPA, numbers, everything. But at the end of the day, you have to line up and punch the person in front of you in their mouth. Mike Tyson said that. Everybody has stats. I might get tired in the first round. I might do this in the second round. When I punch you in the mouth, though, it doesn't matter how tired I am and what my percentage of chance to win this fight was. I won. Like that's the big difference in this. Like you could say everything you want about EPA and all this other stuff. It doesn't matter. They're 12-3 and they're winning those games. Why are these teams that should beat them and have better EPAs or have better point differentials not winning games? Why are these other teams that, why are they not getting first downs or why are they not doing this and they're not winning games?
Okay, let's let Peter get out his little wager. And because I know that Peter has to go. He's got his own life. Go. This has been unbelievable. Peter, what is your friendly wager?
All right. So what I was trying to say 15 minutes ago, if the Vikings win the Super Bowl, okay, I will come back on this show in a Justin Jefferson jersey and tell you all how right you were and how wrong I was, right? Full mea culpa. I will say I was wrong. The Vikings are not frauds in a Justin Jefferson jersey, and I will gritty on this show. How about that?
Okay.
Personally, I don't really care about that. Like winning the Super Bowl and wearing a jersey, like winning the Super Bowl, that's like tattoo territory. Like the fact that you're only willing to, I'd wear Aaron Rodgers' jersey if the Packers beat the Vikings. Like it's not that serious to me.
Locked on Vikings tattoo, right cheek or left cheek, totally up to you.
No, Luke Braun is not going to be tattooed on my body ever. I
like that, like the amount of like what you feel like a team can do shows and what you're willing to risk. That's how I look at that. So you can't go back and change it now. You've told us you really do feel like there's because doing the gritty and wearing the Justin jersey. Like,
I mean, look, you guys, if the Packers lose on Sunday, I might have to get off social media forever already. Like we're already at that point. So like, I'm not risking anything for this week that I don't already have stake in. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm just saying the Super Bowl, like it's very telling to what you think of the Vikings by what you're willing to risk. So appreciate that, Loki. All right, well, we got to get out of here.
Peter and Ron, we'll exchange addresses to get you Christmas cards for each other. I know that you'll be sending those out.
This was healthy. This was good. I hope this game ends in a tie now, just for both of you guys.
Yeah.
All right. We appreciate you, Peter.
Appreciate you guys.
Later, Peter.
Thank you.
Well, that'll do it for the roundtable today. It was a lot of explosive talk, fun talk, though. A lot of the outtakes, people, stay tuned to Locked On Sports Twitter, because a lot of the extras and the arguments are going to have to go there, because we had a lot. And we don't want to bog you down with the arguments. So please check out the fiery, spicy comments. We didn't get the hint on the Gophers today, but we will talk about that next week. Gophers did win the bowl game against Syracuse by 8. Tanner Morgan did get to come in. Hollywood story. So we'll for sure talk about that next week and how Tanner got to ride off on a white horse. Vikings, Packers, 325. Let's see what happens. Are these numbers going to matter? Is the EPA and all that crap going to matter? Or are the Vikings going to finally boat race the Packers again? And we can get Luke Bukowski. I put Luke Brown and Peter Bukowski together because
That's scary.
pretty much much
scary.
what it is. Luke Bukowski, like that's who they are. But I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. That's Luke Inman. And I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Have a great one.